What's up, front porch? Is everyone excited to be here? In a lunch coma still? No? We're back on board? Okay. Okay, first off, I'd like to thank Mina and Chris for putting this all together. Obviously, they put in a ton of work. It's really exciting to see the whole community together. So you might be asking yourself, who is this person standing in front of me? Well, I will tell you. My name is Lindsey Norman. You can find me on Twitter at lnorman16. Exciting stuff happening there. Just kidding. I will tweet the link to this on SlideShare maybe in the next couple of days, so look out for that. Okay, so like a lot of people, I work at Project 202 at this conference. I'm a UX designer there. I work with a ton of smart people. It's fun working there. I feel like I just get smarter being around them. One of the other perks that happens at Project 202 is that it's in Addison, so we're surrounded by restaurants, which means that we are within walking distance from not one, but 2 TGI Fridays, which is pretty exciting. 5-star dining, 5-star dining. Okay, so today, responsive image strategies. That's what we're going over. So this is a pretty complex topic, and something that there's been a lot of arguments about and back and forth. I like this quote from Liza Gardner from Melissa Part. She says, I reserve a special damaged place in my heart for images, just for responsive images. Chris Coyer, obviously from CSS Tricks, says this is a very confusing subject and that we should talk about it in the community and figure out the best solution. So here's why it's so complex. You have use cases there on the left, techniques on the right. I mean, there's a lot of factors to go into what kind of image solution you're going to choose for your site. Obviously, I can't cover all that in 20 minutes, so I'm just going to focus on one particular project that I went through. So also, just to add to more complexity, so let's say web development was like building a house. So there's a lot of things you have to consider when building a house. Obviously, you want it to be aesthetically beautiful, be up to safety standards and energy efficient and whatnot. But then imagine that you're building a skyscraper. And imagine all those things that you had to think about in building the house just get compounded when you're thinking about building a large building. So the conundrum of responsive images gets even more complex when you're talking about large-scale sites. So during this talk, I'm going to talk about a large-scale project that I was involved in and what lessons that we learned during that process and how we handled responsive images given our constraints. Okay, so this is a large retail client. They have a ton of profits in 2013, a massive amount of site content and pages that they had to update constantly. And this organization was new to responsive design, so we weren't starting from scratch. We had to kind of retrofit the site for responsive. Okay, so a lot of the image content was changed out frequently, and another problem that we had was art direction was of high importance. So this is an organization known for really beautiful design, beautiful typography, and they wanted that to look really great on big screens as well as really small screens. So my role in the project, I helped the creative team with implementing the responsive image strategy. And this guy right here, Nathan Smith, I think he's in the back, he developed all of the development techniques behind this, so it's pretty awesome. So one of the big lessons that we learned during this project is that responsive images, or responsive, it's kind of old hat to everyone in this room. Like, it's been around since 2010, but to a lot of organizations, it's kind of a new thing. So I kind of think of web years like dog years. Like, yeah, like 1 year in web time is like 7 years, so responsive came out 2010. So like that's like 28 years, really. Like, so, but that's what it's like to us in this room, but to a lot of people, it's not like that. It's a new thing. Has anyone here listened to this podcast, Responsive Web Design? No? I'd highly recommend this. Obviously, Ethan Marcotte, kind of the creator of Responsive, and Karen McGrain. It's really good. They kind of go through with these big brands and see how they roll out their responsive programs. And one of the big struggles that you hear time and time again with big organizations are their image strategies. So this is Miranda Mulligan from the Boston Globe. And she talks about how her team, her graphics team, they never had to think about what is this going to look like on mobile, you know? So it's kind of a new paradigm shift for a lot of designers. Okay. One of the other big lessons that I learned is that style guides are really awesome, so that everyone is kind of on the same page. So if you have all of your code, all of your responsive strategies all in one place, the team can go and find all the changes there. Okay, so let's talk about some of the responsive image strategies that we went through. So first, for all of our images, we made them slightly larger. We had the team make them slightly larger than they had to be. So let's say you need an image to be 100 pixels wide. We would have the team make them 1.5 to 2 times bigger than that, and then export it at a high compression. So it looks weird because there's all this kind of pixelation, but then when it's sized down to its actual size that it's going to be, it looks really sharp on Retina. Which made no sense to me at first. I'm like, how can it be a larger size dimension but still look good even though it's pixelated? It's crazy. It makes no sense, but it really works. And it reminds me of this place in Marfa, Texas, and it's called the Museum of Electronic Wonders and Late Night Grilled Cheese Parlor. What? Like, that makes no sense. But it works somehow. Like, I want to go to this place. Okay. So I wanted to share with you kind of a fake website to be able to show you visually what we did for our client. And I called it hipsterstuffforsale.com. It's available for $9.99 if you want to buy that URL. I'm sure you do. Okay. So let's talk about percentage crop. P.S. I love this guy. Like, he's so committed to the hipster lifestyle. He's so serious. So with percentage crop and this technique, we are actually cropping in on mobile. So on desktop, you have the full size image. But on mobile, that same image, we're having a cropped focus. So again, this is involved in mobile. We're kind of moving the viewport around and zooming in on that image. So desktop, obviously, full image shown, and on mobile, it's a cropped focus. Okay, so this helps with our art direction use case. And it was a really fast solution. Because the creative team had to produce so many images, this was a really nice solution to have. And it was used most often by the creative team, and it was easy to understand, and there was minimal code to use. So let's look at the code they were responsible for. Again, this is pretty simple. Even for someone that's not very good at code, like this would be pretty easy to update. Really, the big key is the class name there. They're just designated where they want the image to crop as well as how much they want it to crop in. So one of the lessons that we learned is that creative people, or actually anybody, likes to have control. So at first we just had center crop in 75, 60, and 50. And they were like, no, 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 that's not going to work. We want to have left, right, and center crop, as well as increments of 5 from 50 to 90. So they want very precise control on where this image was being cropped. So Nathan Smith and all of his brilliance came up with a crazy SAS loop that automatically did this for him, so he wouldn't have to write out every single line of code for that. This is kind of, so he did it for center, left, and right. Kind of crazy SAS loop. And also a big thing that can be a help if you have team members that are producing a lot of content, making templates for them can make things faster. So for this technique, I made a Photoshop template. I had left, right, and center crop, and I had like the different percentages in there. And so they could make sure that all the content that was really important fit into that safe zone, if you will. So I think that was a big help for them. And this is what that image would look like on the desktop size and also cropped in on a mobile. So you're focusing in on that really important part of the image. Okay, picture element, so exciting, it just came out. I know you guys are excited. So what's awesome about this is if you have an image that you kind of need to rearrange the elements, like you can't just use the same image and crop it in, like you kind of need to rearrange it. The picture element is great for that. So again, this requires separate images for the different viewports. And we use picturefill.js. And this is a more time-intensive technique, so it was used less often by the creative team, but it was good for pages with high importance. So here's the markup for that. Again, not that much code for somebody, if they don't know how to code that well, to update. The important thing was making sure that they use the right media queries. So in there, I don't know if you could see that very well. But within the picture element, setting the source from 768 and beyond to be the larger image, and then from 1 pixel to 767 be the smaller image. And of course, having that image default there just in case. Be thorough when discussing media queries to like a creative type that maybe doesn't know how to code, because that can get kind of unwieldy, as we discovered. And make sure to include a discussion of new HTML5 elements. Like some of our creatives were like, I don't understand what a figure tag is. What does that mean? Why can't I just use a div? And so just kind of explaining that to them was kind of key. Okay, so this is what that would look like on the desktop size and also mobile, kind of getting a different look for those different types of devices. Okay, and this was my most favorite kind of remix that we did. So we have the picture element with absolutely positioned links. So this happens a lot in retail. They'll have like an image that contains like multiple products in it, and they'll need to link to those different product pages within one image. So let's take a closer look at the desktop size. So let's say you want that really manly boot there. So we have kind of absolutely positioned links within that image, kind of covering up and having like some overlays there. And then also the other products will also have their own link. And so with this, you kind of need a separate image for mobile because this probably wouldn't look, you wouldn't be able to hit the different links on a mobile device if this were sized down to mobile. So kind of reconfiguring to be a better arrangement, or better layout, I should say, for mobile. So again, you have those position links on top of the image. Okay, so this is how we did this in code. This, I have to admit, the creatives were like, what is going on with this code? They were like super scared. But I think if you break down each different piece to them, like it can be easier to understand. So the very top part is the same thing that we did in the last example. So we have the different media queries indicating which image you're going to serve at the different sizes. And then below you have the absolutely positioned links. So each one has to have like a top, left, and right and bottom percentage calculation. Again, this is another thing that the creatives are like, I don't feel like doing math. You know, not to say that creatives don't know how to do math, but. So this is obviously more time intensive than the alternative, which are image maps. People are still using image maps. It's crazy. So I urge you to go out there and tell people not to use image maps. So this technique can be intimidating to creatives at first, but if you teach them how to do it, I think they'll get more comfortable. And this technique is better for user experience than an image map because you can serve different images that have different sized links for the different devices. Okay. So one of the lessons that came out of this is to physically show the people, the content creators, how to design in the browser. This might not be something that they're familiar with or have ever done. So just sitting down with someone for like an hour can really pay off. And also discuss how big like hit states need to be, especially for touch devices. That's really important. And just know that this takes time to master, especially for someone that's not that comfortable with responsive yet. Okay, so finally, I'm going to wrap up with just saying, help to close the knowledge gap in your organization if you are transitioning to responsive. So our problem was the creatives had like different levels of development skills, and they kept being focused on that kind of old paradigm of just fixed width things and everything being pixel perfect, where that's not really a thing in responsive. So developing those new ways of thinking, like what would this look like on mobile, and hit states for touch, and thinking in terms of percentages instead of fixed widths. So to do this, to help close that knowledge gap, hold workshops in your organization, create guides and documentation to help your team members out, show them how to design in the browser, and try not to use the word education. I feel like that kind of sounds like I'm the teacher and you're the student and I'm way smarter than you. Maybe have it more like knowledge sharing. I don't know, maybe you have a better term for it. Okay, I have a couple of recommendations for things that you might give to somebody if they aren't as familiar with coding or responsive design. This book over here, it's called Learning Responsive Web Design. It's really good and it explains things really well, and it covers a lot of really great topics. Girl Develop It, of course. It definitely helps if you're in a safe environment to learn some new code and stuff. Online tutorials, of course, and show them blogs and resources that they might not be familiar with, because sometimes people just need to be like clued into the conversation in order to like catch up with that knowledge gap. So finally, I have this picture here. Did anyone play this game back in the day? Show of hands. Yeah, Operation. So great. I have this here because I like to think of a web design project as being like a human body. I'm using a lot of metaphors today, just so you know. So maybe development is like the brain, and maybe design is like the heart. And the project isn't going to go well if the heart just shuts down. So you need every part of the body to work together. So definitely, this is a quote, hat tip to Matt Baxter for tweeting out a link to this story. But it's about having empathy for your team, and basically you can overcome communication barriers by communicating with each other. But anyway, so that's the end of my presentation. Thank you guys so much.